The role of the subordinating conjunction as a pronoun in the subordinate clause as a pronoun is this. The speaker reveals that the subject or object indicated by the subordinating conjunction exists from the description in the subordinate clause. The subordinate clause with the be verb or the general verb exist reveals that the speaker describes the subject or object with the experience, condition, or action on the premise that the subject or object indicated by the subordinating conjunction. The primary premise for a description is that the subject or object exists. The speaker indicates a subject or an object that is not a person with the pronoun what, not the indefinite pronoun something or anything. From now on, we will study about the necessity of a subordinate clause with the subordinating conjunction as a pronoun. For example, the pronoun what is introduced. The indefinite pronoun something or anything, and the pronoun that we studied as an interrogative pronoun what indicate a subject or an object that is not a person in common. The speaker applies the pronoun what as a subordinating conjunction. So we will study about the difference between the indefinite pronoun something or anything with the subordinating conjunction what. The speaker indicates a subject or an object that is a person with the pronoun who, not the indefinite pronoun someone or anyone. The indefinite pronoun someone or anyone and the pronoun who that we studied as an interrogative pronoun indicate a subject or an object that is a person. The speaker is able to describe a person in the main clause with the descriptive word for the indefinite pronoun someone or anyone to the person. The speaker applies the subordinating conjunction who in the sentence. Let's figure out the necessity of the subordinate clause with the subordinating conjunction who as a pronoun. This is a composition of a statement to reveal the intention of the speaker who enlarges the borderline of the indication from the premise to indicate the subject or object not as a person or as a person with the description in the subordinate clause. When the speaker indicates a subject or an object with a noun or a pronoun, the speaker and the listeners both come up with the range of the indication, the noun or the pronoun. Let's think about the subject on eraser. As we both agree that the general noun eraser is applied to indicate a subject, and we can say that the subject that we both came up with an eraser with the borderline. The borderline is included in the criteria of stationery. In the category of the stationery, there can be a borderline of an eraser like this, and the borderline of the eraser is distinguished from the other borderline of a pencil. The speaker who intends to enlarge the borderline, the indication of a general noun eraser with the description in the subordinate clause. For example, the clause an eraser exists is about the subject and the description. The subject. So we can think of the subject and we can enlarge the boundary of with the condition of the subject to exist at a point in time, at a place. The reason why the speaker describes the subject or object indicated by the subordinating conjunction in the subordinate clause is concluded into the reason why the speaker conveys the intention more than an indication in a clause. In this way, we can understand that a clause to include a subject and a verb at least describes the existence of the subject as a premise and the description about the subject. So, we will review the role of a verb that constitutes the simplest type of clause with the subject. The description by a verb in the subordinate clause enlarges the boundary of the indication. A verb or a derived form of a verb reveals the information about the time that the definition lasts. So, the speaker constitutes the subordinate clause to reveal the period that the description about the subject is valid. The tense reveals the duration of the description. The definition of the verb lasts for a specific point in time or a period. The verb in the subordinate clause is necessary because of the tense. The derivative of a verb, like root infinitive, to infinitive, a gerund, a present participle, or a past participle, also describes the subject or object in the clause. The second reason why a verb is necessary in the subordinate clause is to reveal the number of the subject and the role of the subject in the conversation with the speaker. The form of the verb reveals that the subject in the subordinate clause reveals the number of the subject. And the form of the verb in the subordinate clause reveals whether the subject participates in the conversation with the speaker or not. The verb describes the subject, and whether the subject participates in the conversation with the speaker or not is the important information for the listeners, because the listeners can prioritize the information conveyed from the clause. The priority of the clause follows whether the subject participates in the conversation with the speaker or not. The derivative of a verb does not reveal whether the subject or object described by the derivative participates in the conversation with the speaker or not. The speaker constitutes the subordinate clause to reveal that the subordinating conjunction to practice the role as a subject described by a verb signifies the information about the number of the subject in the role that the subject practices in the conversation with the speaker. This is because the speaker cares for the listeners to prioritize the intention of the speaker conveyed in the subordinate clause according to the subject indicated by the subordinating conjunction as a pronoun.